This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day. Carefully crafted for you by humans, so meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Alrighty. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fully Managed podcast where we discuss marketing and business tips to help assist you on your business journey. I'm your host, Shannon, Penji's partnership coordinator, and I'm joined here today with a very special guest, Luis Anastas, who is a creative director at the Blue Agency, but also has a specialty and a passion for helping brand leaders with video content. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat with you. As you mentioned, should I give a brief overview of some of the work I've done at the Blue Agency? Or
that would be great. Yeah, anything that you think is relevant in your business journey that people would like to know.
Yeah, at the Blue Agency, we basically, I'm the creative director and the founder, and basically we aim to use video to tell stories. I feel it's the most powerful medium. Obviously, we built campaigns with all kinds of elements and creative content, but really, to me, video always leads the way. It's the most powerful, and I really focus on like tech-driven brands and engineering-driven brands and science-based companies too. So to me, it's like really complex companies that you have to distill something, in simple terms in a matter of seconds. And so typically I find that interviewing, the best and the brightest in a company is that it has that way of kind of introducing passion and clarity into like what's being offered by that brand, right? So to me, I like using humans to talk about the machines and the engineering, these complex things that they build. I think that they're best at it, right? So we're still on top as humans in telling our stories.
Yeah. No, I think that's good because I think that it's very difficult for some people to understand a lot about technology, especially it's so intricate. And I know you talk to like engineers, and I think that that's to have a human-centered approach to explaining that, I think it makes it much easier for the average person to connect with a product or a service because they can have like a better grasp of it, whereas it's kind of completely out of most people's wheelhouses if they're not in that industry.
No doubt. Yeah, no doubt. And I think that the biggest thing that I find that works in extracting that story is just, you got to do your homework on it. I pride myself like understanding science. I'm a creative person, right? But I do love science and engineering. I found that engineers are similar to creative people in that there's ideas and then there's process, and all that. So I really kind of focus on understanding what they're talking about so that I can surprise them during the interview, talk about things that they understand, show that I understand it, and then take them deeper so that they're not just talking the surface stuff that they might pitch often, but they're going to go deeper because suddenly they're talking to a colleague who understands what they're doing. And by going deeper, it isn't a scary thing, but because in some ways they have a simple way of conveying that. So if you do your homework and you engage with them, and show curiosity, that's what to me, brings out the passion and kind of the depth that really makes, the content special, not just surface and superficial.
Yeah, I think it's also these types of people that are doing these things. I think that people probably ask them about their work a lot, and they kind of have to create this layman's terms of conveying what they do to people often, because it's really, if it's something that's difficult to understand, I think that even just talking about it in passing with people, I think that they're very probably used to doing that, or they just fail to explain it altogether. So it's nice that you have that assistive tool for them to be able to convey their work to other people.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, it's funny because anything that all of us are good at, and we all have these strengths of ours, we kind of don't realize how long it's taken us to get good at it, and we don't even explain it well sometimes, right? So I happen to be a very great parallel parker. I can't explain why I'm good at it. No, but it's funny. But so sometimes you're right. They have these answers, and they're just like kind of flippant about it. Like someone working on like aerospace, creation of satellites that unfurl in space, to open up because they have to be launched, closed, and then they unfurl in space. And of course, if something goes wrong with the unfurling, then that satellite is lost forever, and they just lost millions of dollars. So I'd like interview people who do that, and and how many tests they conduct, so that to make sure it opens up. And they're kind of flippant about it. It's like, yeah, well, we just tested a lot and this and that, but it's like so serious, and
Yeah,
like so many people to do it, and it's just fun to hear about, with the
people
planning.
don't always give their work justice. I think that's a big, especially something that's overly complex. I think that they try to simplify it maybe too much at like a detriment for them and what they actually do. It seems so simple, but it's just not as simple as they make it sound.
Right, right.
So we're going to start this. I know we already had a little bit of a discussion, but we're going to start this podcast getting our creative juices flowing,
Right.
get you started on getting into all these different topics. So I want to play a little game. We call this game Cancel or Keep. So for everyone watching who wants to understand that a little bit more, I already explained it to Luis before this podcast started, but we're going to basically, I'm going to give you a bunch of scenarios and or little snippets of things that are involved in agency work regularly, and you're going to tell me whether you'd rather cancel or keep it, and give me a short explanation as to why, or a long explanation as to why if you're really passionate about it. All right, are you ready to start?
Yeah, I'm a little nervous, but I'm ready.
You're going to do great. It's going to be awesome. So it's simple stuff. All right, first one. Okay, working from home, cancel or keep?
I would say keep. And I think, like many people, I think a hybrid mix is good. I think there's times in all our work we want to dive deep into something. So I think being at home sometimes with limited distractions, although if you have a puppy like I do, he'll distract you sometimes. And so that's part of the problem. And I think there's times where I do love in-person meetings with a team, where you get to be together, crack jokes, kind of build and make things happen in real time. So is it fair to say kind of keep, but a hybrid form is okay? So working from home 3 days a week, maybe going to the office once or twice a week seems to be a good mix, I think. Yeah.
I like that too. I think that it's a really great way to be able to have that happy medium of both. Some people aren't as productive as they would be in the office at home, so they have that choice, which I love the choice. I think that people know what works better for them, so I love the opportunity to be able to pick one or the other too.
Yeah. I think that's true.
Okay, next one. Right. Using AI for content creation. Cancel or keep?
Well, we're definitely going to have to keep it because it's definitely where we're going. I haven't gotten to really sophisticated tools in video with AI, which is happening. I have some friends who are going deep, and one's kind of a young, almost like professor now at UCLA, and he's doing a lot of cutting edge work, and I'm paying attention to what he's doing. And even with great talent, like it's not as good as like animation that, I can build with a team member, but it's getting there. Right. And then the one thing I do use it like everyone else as a writer, I'll use, ChatGPT to kind of come up with ideas, or sometimes I'll let it rewrite my stuff. And I am finding that usually I don't like the rewrites still. And I'm thinking like, no one knows I'm using, ChatGPT, when I run it through, but I kind of look at it and say, you lost some of the personality. You made an assumption here that I didn't really mean to happen. So I think you got to learn the tools. I think we all have to learn the tools a little bit at this point, or quite a bit. And then when it starts equaling the kind of work we're used to doing, then I think we'll know, like, whether it's a year from now or 5 years from now or 10 years from now, it's like, okay, I can use this tool now. But right now it's not as good as we are, which is fine, I think. But I think it might pass us, right? Yeah.
You would say cancel for now, maybe, and when it gets better, keep?
I think that, that's good. I think cancel for now, use it, train on it, but don't keep it yet, because it's not, and it's like always, when I work with a teammate who's creative, if they make your idea better, I love those people, right? I let them know, and I'm very giddy. And so, I let them run with it. And then, right now AI is not that teammate. It's not the person who's better than me or my teammate or my thoughts. So yeah, I guess cancel for now, but it's coming for us, right?
Yeah, it definitely is. I definitely agree that it's kind of more of a tool now. And even then, it's not the best at everything that we need help with that it's supposed to be able to be doing at this moment. It definitely needs to adapt more, become more human, which is maybe slightly disturbing to many, but is a good thing. I mean, it's going to be helpful.
Yeah. I mean, we're super
So
brilliant. I mean, humans are, there's nothing like us yet. We really
mhm.
are brilliant, and in the ways, the millions of decisions we make in seconds is still far ahead of what it can do. So for now, it's a good thing, I think. Yeah.
I agree. Okay. Next one, the pitch process: cancel or keep?
Good question. There's definitely on the agency side, there's definitely this big discussions about this, right? I'm moving towards the pitch process for free is time to cancel, right? People can look at you and see what you've done and know it's not going to be exactly what they want in most cases. If you want me or my team or others, who do what I do to present to you, there needs to be like a fee defined, and that pitch can be developed for you with cost cost passed on to the person seeking the pitch. So I think I would cancel the free pitch. I've done it before. I don't do it very often now. I don't remember the last time I've done it, but I think that's healthy for everyone involved.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that helps, but I think it's a big conversation in agency land, and I'd say ask people to pay you for the pitch. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's your work. You're still working for that effort. I think that I completely understand your line of thinking. I think a lot of people have very differing opinions on that. So it's interesting to get your perspective.
Yeah.
The
And
next
sometimes there's projects that are so big. I'm sorry, like RFPs. I did a big presentation. For Kennedy Space Center, which was kind of like a once in a lifetime, and it was a big project, and I did do that pitch, for free, but I made that choice, right? I mean, it's like it was such a big opportunity that I thought, this one, could go on my tombstone potentially. So I kind of want to, so I'm willing to do it, but I think you have to make that decision and don't feel pressured into it.
Yeah,
So,
I definitely agree. I think that's it's really up to the person that's doing it, whether that's taking too much time out of their day for something that may or may not be fruitful. So I think that it's really, I think it's definitely up to the individual to know their value and know what they want to do in that situation.
yeah, agree.
Lastly, for the game, unlimited revisions for clients:
Yeah,
cancel or keep?
that's an easy cancel. Uh, and I urge everyone listening, especially younger creatives, or people maybe pivoting into the career, if you have a statement of work up front, try to build in those the amount of revisions literally into the agreement. That's the biggest lesson, maybe the last 10, 15 years for myself, is saying how many especially in video, because it becomes so expensive.
Mhm.
But we'll deliver this version. There's a series of notes that must be delivered back in X amount of days. Then this revision will be shared at that point. And then a lot of times with video, and then at that point the second version is shared, and then the last set of revision notes are usually like reserved for corrections. Is there a misspelled name? Is there a color that was botched on something? The way it was, it was color graded. Is there something wrong? So I would say, and you can have an extra step in there. It's whatever you want, but definitely, again, just trying to be helpful to others who are watching this. Define that in the process. Most clients will respect it. And then I always say, like, if there is a small change at the end that someone wants, and it'll take you like 8 minutes or an hour, and you're willing to do it, then be the hero and say, okay, we'll do that one. No extra charge. No worries. And then they'll be thankful. But that way you contain the process. But unlimited changes are painful, and they suck out the joy out of a process. And really, they also hurt the business, because what you could be doing next is not being done. You're still working on the thing that hasn't gone out the door yet. And so you're hurting the business kind of momentum of the work you're doing, because not only have you gotten this not out the door, but you're also not working on the next thing that's needed by the brand. Does that make sense?
No,
So
100%. I think it does, it stifles the process. It's definitely the creativity of the creator. It's a lot. I think that some people are a little bit too nitpicky of something. If they're trusting someone to do something for them, then they should maybe trust them a little more. I think that's like the biggest difficulty
yeah,
when wanting so many revisions, is that maybe there wouldn't be as many revisions if you were more clear about what you wanted in the beginning. And then also, maybe you just didn't really know what you wanted until you saw what you didn't. And that's a problem with like a clear picture, because you either have to give your full trust if you don't have a clear picture, or you have to be very specific about what you want in the beginning. But I feel like it's mostly on the client to be able to communicate effectively, in order to make sure that those needs are met for the creative team, because they need to know what they're supposed to be doing. And I think that it is it complicates things when there's more revisions for everyone involved.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I, you know, I'm a really I'm usually in projects I developed, I'm usually the good cop. I don't want to be that guy who's, shuts down the process, because sometimes you're right. There are things that are discovered, and if it's like a good note, like, okay, that change is good and helpful. Can it fit into the statement of work? Have we saved time in other parts of the project? Can we invest those 5 hours to do that work? And if I have those hours left, I'll do it, and if we're going over, then I'll ask the client, hey, it's going to cost a few extra dollars to do this, but can we have, are you good with that? So I like to be open with everyone. I definitely, everybody has creative input that they can put in, even the executive who doesn't have quote unquote creative training. I mean, they're usually very smart and watch good television. We're all watching such good shows now, and they have takes, they understand the process a bit. So I'll be open to that. But again, if the dollars are, if there's no budget left, then you just be open and say, hey, I'd like to do that. I see the power in that. That wasn't what we talked about earlier, but let's make it happen. It'll cost X amount of dollars. What do you think? And they'll usually say, of course, let's do it.
Yeah.
I think that cordiality can be there, and it almost always works if you build
It's
trust
all
with
about
your client, right?
it's all about that effective communication with the client of what you what you can realistically do for them. And then they'll respond in the way that makes sense for them as well.
No doubt.
I agree that unlimited revisions is crazy, especially if you're on a campaign-based
Yes.
sale or a project-based. It's almost impossible for someone to manage.
Right. It hurts the momentum, and marketing momentum is important. It's a thing, and you just want to keep moving, and it's and it's so different now. It's so rapid fire now that you got to keep moving and doing the next project and making the next kind of impact for the brand where it needs, because it's an ongoing process, as you know, and slowing it up does no good for anyone.
Yeah, 100%. Well, thank you for participating in our game. You did
It's so fun. It was
fantastic.
painless. Thank you. Yes.
Exactly. It's just everyone's got opinions on these things. I know. I've talked to many agency goers, and I know that they have opinions. So we are
No
maybe
doubt.
some of the most opinionated people.
Yeah. Yes.
So getting into what you do best. So not that on any of the things that we just talked about you might not do fantastically, but specifics. So you've pivoted to solely creating video content and to also teaching brands how to do it themselves. So what sparked this shift, and what do you think was like the biggest challenge in this process?
Yeah. I have shifted lately, and really, I have a Blue Agency website, and do that work under that umbrella, right? So that's where I've been doing for 5-6 years now. I'm based in Los Angeles, and yeah, I almost always make videos. Sometimes I make other complementary content if asked, but basically, feel I tell the brand story, right? So usually, obviously by understanding the process of what this brand does, the products it puts out in the world, how it empowers its customers, and all that. Usually the job one is the brand video to kind of tell that story, right? To capture kind of the passion. Sometimes the brand doesn't even have a video that's as good as what they do as a company, right? The company is so stellar, and they have this showing in the marketplace that doesn't even capture what they do. So I try to capture those gaps and to tell that brand video in a powerful way, and to create it again, usually with interviewing folks. But then the other thing that I like to do is also do kind of like product focused videos, because in a sense that's the thing that people can get their hands on, or the service or the product. That's the thing that has the specificity and the wow factor. That's what empowers folks. So to me, it's always a matter of capturing the product videos and the thing about and telling those stories and how the empowerment happens. And then to your point about the pivot, and then I kind of I created another brand under my name, Lewis Anastas, lewisanastas.com. And basically it's doing what I've been doing for years, but I'm more with a kind of a training or guide or teacher in mind, where like, I'm going to help you create the work. I'll work with you. In some ways I might just advise you. I might help look at script notes, because I think the pivots come because as my career progresses, I want to empower people to do it themselves. And of course, technology in the last 20 years has grown so that the iPhone in our hands, especially if you have a pro model, I mean, that thing is a serious camera. It's a serious video camera. And so people are starting to shoot content themselves. But they're making rookie mistakes too, right? So it's not all about the camera. It's not all about having the mic attached. And so I started pivoting where I was like, okay, I think I can teach people how to make a brand video, how to interview their people, how to get the right person to do a product, video, and how to set the camera up, how to light it. But to me, it's still like the little things, the human things that make things better, like the rigor of understanding, being a good interviewer, being a good listener, and all that. So in a sense, lewisanastas.com is more focused on, having brands come to me. I do deep dives on them with understanding their brand and helping them create content or concepts for them that they make. Or I teach them how to interview people in a powerful way that have driven most of my videos. So, so I think it's like technology is getting there. I think it's this point in my career, I want to help, I want to teach people to do it for themselves. I don't have to be that fancy schmancy expert who knows how to do everything. I think I can teach smart people to do it themselves. And so I think kind of a long-winded answer maybe, but I think that evolution is just, it has many factors to it. And I really enjoy the process of teaching and guiding and making with someone else. It's a blast.
I really admire that. I think that helping people at like getting to a point in your career where you think that you can help is like one, just lovely, because that means that you've learned so much and you want to share it with others. But I also think that it's admirable to want to do that and not have people rely on a service, I guess, to do it for them, because it's just you're providing value to them that is that doesn't really have a price tag. I mean, like there is, price associated with it, but it's something that people can use for longevity and not just a one-time thing and then they have to go back or whatever it may be. And I think that's way more valuable than just trusting someone to do that thing for you over and over again and having to continuously pay it, because like some people don't have the ability to do that, especially like small businesses, smaller brands. I think they would prefer to do things themselves and they go to agencies because they can't or they really do need help. And it's incredible to know that you're able to provide that for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think people feel overwhelmed. They don't know where to start, and like they think what creatives do is magic, and some of it is magic, in a way, but most of it isn't. And I think if they have the time and the will to do it, I think, again, like one thing I'm doing is helping people create a blueprint for their brands where it's like, there's 3 simple steps, this is a fee that they pay me to do this with them. But then in a sense, they don't ever need me again, theoretically, unless they want a refresher, unless they want someone to help make the work. But we assess the brand and I tell them like, hey, you're doing that. Like by interviewing people, I find out like, we don't even know about that. The brand story isn't even talking about that. So let's assess all the things that you're doing. Let's rewrite the brand story in step number 2, where we kind of, all these things that we found, we kind of tell the story in a simple way. And these are not like 19-page documents. They're like 2-page stories or 1-page stories. They're very simple. They're meant to be acted upon. And then what I'll do is, and then the third step, I'll just kind of come up with concepts to fill all the things they're doing. Are they on LinkedIn? Are they running paid media? Are they at trade shows a lot? Do they have a headquarters where people are, walking into their office and sitting down in a waiting room and can see something? That's rare, but that happens. So we're all the touch points where we can make content. I'll make concepts for them in all these places to fill in the blanks and saying, okay, we assessed your brand. We made it better, the story better, because we found things that you weren't telling people. I created concepts in all the places you want to touch people. And like, okay, here you go make it, or I can help find someone to make it for you. Or in some rare case, I can make it for you. But it's really a fun process because in 4 or 5 weeks, you can like give them all the things that, that can drive them forward. And then it comes from my agency background where sometimes you didn't do that deep dive and you're like dying, like, oh my God, I don't understand a couple things about the brand. I want to interview a few people and you might not get that opportunity. So in some ways, if you're hired to do it, and it's very reasonable, you could do all that homework and present the bundle to them. Does that make sense? And that's kind of my
Yeah.
blueprint. And I love doing that for people. And that's something I started doing recently. And it's a blast because you give them the keys to the kingdom, and then you let them run with it and make it happen. So
What do you think is the biggest misconception that brands have about creating their own content that you run into when talking to these people?
yeah, sometimes they're so close to it. They know their business better than we do, and so they get most of it right. But then there's some things that, like, I trust my, you as a creative and a strategist, the strategy is always there, but I try to remain a kid, like when something really wows me, it's like, wait a second, you're doing that. And I didn't even, and you're not telling people that you're doing that, whatever, that might be. And so it's not false hype, right? You never, like, if they do something really mundane, they bend, hangers, metal hangers. And it's like, okay, that's not interesting. What else do you do? So it's not false hype. It's like trusting your instincts as a creative to, like, discover things with them. Does that make so you're kind of, so I think if they have me in the picture, I kind of help shape that story. If they try to do it on their own, I think if someone doesn't have the means to hire someone like me, talk to a good trusted friend who has a business, talk to your spouse, get your kids' insights, talk to someone else, tell them the story, tell them what's in the story and what's not in the story, and have them give you context and then shape it yourself. So if someone's listening right now, I would say don't be afraid to enter into conversation with someone you trust and who cares about your business, to do this process with them. And I think you'll come out stronger on the other side. So you could do that yourself, like today. Why not?
Yeah, so you suggest outside help for someone who's kind of way too involved, maybe?
Yeah, totally.
Mhm.
Because it'll shape, tell them all the things that you do. Tell them what your story is now. Like, have them look at the content on your site, on the videos, see how you're presenting yourself to the world. And then talk more in depth about your business, some of the things. And the big thing, we all learn this. It's like, as humans or as businesses, we are here and we want to get here, right?
Mhm.
There's always that journey, and we're always striving to get there. And so in some ways, I think as a business owner, you might talk about, well, my brand's here. I want it to be here. And how do I tell that story? And usually there's excitement there, right? Going from, like, random thought that just popped in my head, but my father back in the 50s had a small, like, they had electric razors, a shaver repair shop. Okay. So he would sell razors. He would repair them, but in his heart, he wanted to be a jeweler. Okay. Imagine that weird connection. Right. And so he started offering jewelry in his small store. And then eventually he bought this big store downtown Canton, a middle-sized city in Ohio. And then jewelry became the main feature, diamond engagement rings and gold chains. And it was a jewelry store. There was still a shaver department, of course, because that's where he started. So it's the weirdest combination of things. So this man who had accomplished a lot, an immigrant and barely spoke the language and all that, had a shaver shop that transformed into a big, kind of fine jewelry store in the heart of the city, all because he wanted to go from here to there. And my dad actually, random thought, but he had he went by William, which is the Americanized version. But then when he opened the jewelry store, he went by Basil, which is the Greek name, and it's more exotic. So my dad had this, like, branding thing. So he started becoming Basil, the jeweler, and he was like, oh my God, it's brilliant. And so it's like that whole, so in your business, whether it's small or large, you're going from here to there. So if you're worried about having interesting information, tell that story. And that journey will really connect with people and your customers and get them excited about you. I hope that helps people, and I don't know if that was too long of an answer, but
Oh, no,
yeah.
not at all. During that process, do you have any suggestions for any skills that you think that brand leaders should maybe master or have under their belt to be better at content creation? Like, any suggestions that you think would be critical for them to get from point A to point B?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think the one thing we have to dive into, I don't want to make light of it, is creating content and then testing it in the marketplace and seeing how it responds. So this isn't like the case study where I do believe in authenticity. So let's say you're telling the brand story, you put some content out to kind of talk about the journey that's happening for the brand, or the way it empowers its customers. See what connects and what doesn't. And as a creative, you'll have, 4 or 5 ways to tell this story. You'll see that a couple of the ways really connected and a couple didn't. So extract the ones that didn't connect and keep diving deeper. It's not like you're reshaping the truth. It's just you're finding different, like we said earlier, you're finding that angle on how to tell it, right? And so some angles will connect and some won't. And so I think a brand manager, someone, again, in that position, needs to evaluate the content, how it's being received, and give more of what's connecting and less of what's not. So sounds pretty obvious, and it also sounds like a ticket to like make inauthentic stuff. No, you have to be authentic the whole time, or else you'll lose your audience altogether, I think, in most cases. So really aim for authenticity and like honesty, because that usually will connect best. But test it and keep moving, and always be testing and always be evaluating, assessing what's happening in the marketplace.
Yeah, I think that I think that there's a misconception that targeting an audience makes something less authentic, but I think you can have authenticity and have different ways of explaining something that just works better. And I think that a lot of people kind of ignore that concept where it's like, it's only the most authentic if it's like my first way of explaining it, or like I'm not thinking through all these different ways in order to explain it. That doesn't make it, if it's true, it's authentic. And I think that's what people don't realize, is that it doesn't have to be, it can still be catered to a specific group and trying to reach them while also being authentic and true about their brand.
No doubt. I mean, we all have multiple reasons why we like a product or a service, or on all fronts. And there's 2 or 3 or 4 reasons we like something. And quite honestly, sometimes we're not even aware what the main reason is, right? And so I think by a brand strategy could be to kind of, target these messages to me, and then suddenly, you'll see what I respond to the most of all. Like why, is it convenience? Is it cost effectiveness? Is it stature? What is really, grabbing, what is really, influencing me the most to be a customer of that product, right? Or of that brand. So, yeah, we have multiple reasons, and find the main one, and be true. I think you're right. So authenticity matters, and truth matters for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And truth can still be targeted for an audience. I think that it doesn't take away from authenticity as long as you're telling the truth and what you're actually doing, and why people like it. So if you were to convince, say, like a hesitant brand leader to embrace in-house creation, what would your argument be if you were to take a stance on that?
Yeah. So let's say a brand hires me to do a blueprint service with them, right? And they're going to give me a few dollars, and I'm going to do this assessment with it. But let's say my goal is to empower the team, right? At the end of the day, when I create those concepts, I'm going to hand them off to the team, right? And say, hey guys, you got this. Okay. I think that working with a brand manager like that, in that example, let's say, I would say that the team is involved early on in the process and the assessment. Like, for instance, one of the things I do in the assessment is interview key people. And so maybe Jane and Joe in the creative department, they tell me, some people, oh, I really love this, one engineer, the way he talks and about the products and this and that. And so I think you should interview him. And so I think having them involved in the assessment process, like they're part of the creative team, right? And so I'm kind of like leading or teaching or coaching at this point. I'm the coach and they're the players maybe. And so I think if they're in the process the whole time, and then I rewrite the brand story with their input, they've shared it with, they give me some notes and they think, hey, Lewis, I think we missed this. I think we missed that. I think this should be more accentuated in that document. And so again, they're part of the process. They own it. And at the end, when the concepts are created, we've obviously had conversations, and they think that the engineer, Michelle, the engineer, is wonderful, and they think that she should do the product videos for whatever. Let's say that came up in a conversation. So I have that as part of the 10 or 12 concepts. Michelle will do these in this, cool space, and all that. And so I think if they're in the process the whole time, I think at the end, I'm not just handing them something like a foreign object to them. I'm handing something that they co-created with me, that they have confidence in. And that would be my pitch to the brand manager. Like, let me work with your team. Let me empower them. Let me make them feel good about themselves. Let's all listen together and create these together. and then let them run with it. And then someone like me can be brought in for a few dollars just to oversee something a little bit, but I'll still be in that coach mode, right? I still want to empower. I want to leave them, but my job would be to leave after a few weeks or months and look at the work and just have made that impact on them. So include them all along the way. And if the talent's there and the desire to make good work is there, and it's really the desire is most everything, they'll be fine.
No, I think that's incredible, because it's like, I like how you said it of, it's not giving like this foreign thing to them. Keeping them involved in the process can also help them in the future of like, even though you're giving them this outline of like how to do it, because they're a part of the process, they kind of know your way of thinking that isn't just from this like template, and so to speak, that you're giving them. So they can actually believe that they can do it and conduct it again in-house because of how you involve them in the process, which I think is incredibly valuable.
Yeah, and them being in-house, like I've been in-house too, and it was so valuable, and I loved it because you were kind of the owner of the brand,
Mm-hmm.
So 6 months later, like maybe I've learned about the brand, and 6 months later, I'm no longer in the picture, and their brand has evolved a little bit, right? And no one knows it better than they do, right? If I came back in, I'd have to learn what they've been doing and how things have migrated or evolved. And so now they have more confidence in making. They know how the brand's pivoting. They live it. And so their content 6 months later, when I'm not even in the picture, or a year later, is dialed in. It's high quality. It's got the nuances of the brand, and it's doing things that only they could do. So that's pretty cool. I'll never know maybe that happened, but it's still a good feeling to know that you're empowering people, which is really what all brands try to do, right? All things that we, in the modern world, that we try to sell to others, we're trying to empower and make them better. And so I think if we all take that seriously, I think the world's going to be a better place, to state the obvious.
I think that's a beautiful note to end on, because it honestly was so perfect, because I think that will empower people. And I do appreciate that that's kind of your mission, at least for now in life. I do really appreciate, especially people in the agency world that want to do that, because I think that, again, we kind of talked about it before the podcast, but it used to be very secretive. It's getting a little better, but I do really love to see when people are trying to help others out, because I think that this should be a world in which we should share more. It's different from the corporate world in the way that it can entice more like more advice, more social aspect that doesn't have to be so cookie cutter and perfect. And I do really love the agency world because of that.
Yeah, I think the transparency is so important. We talked about this earlier, where you're doing something with someone, or maybe for someone, then with someone, and then they're doing it without you. I think good consulting, good agency work is all about like training others so that you leave them better off. And there's, than when you started with them. And there's all these hybrid teams, where teams from the agency and teams from, or the consulting firm or whatever, it dovetail with the team from the brand, and then eventually the agency or the consultant needs to go away and leave the brand or, folks in place. And one thought I had, and I don't mean to throw this out because I should have asked you earlier, but I have a small like micro book about the process that I sell for like $6, but I'm happy to give it away for free to anyone who's like watching. If you're cool with that, I can give like if you're good, I'll give my URL away, ask people to email me from there. And if they watch the podcast, I'll send them a copy for free. I think it'll help. But is that okay? And you tell me.
That's lovely. Yeah. If you just send me that URL, I can feature it in the description of the video.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. As long as you're okay with it coming out some from now, so that as long as you're still okay with it.
Yeah, we'll put maybe we'll put a couple weeks out there, but basically if you go to my website, lewisanastas.com, send me an email from there. I will, I'll send you a book for free, and I think it could impact your life. And I think it could, there's enough in there that's very substantive. It's, that I think it could impact the way you do things, especially if you're already making. I think you'll make a little better. There's a little, some, I wouldn't call them tricks. They're deep kind of advice on how to do things the right way. I learned from some great documentarians, literally like iconic people. Just, I got lucky to be in their orbit, so I kind of learned from the best, and it's definitely influenced me. So I just, again, we all need to pass that kind of stuff on to one another. So, but I'll share that with you, and then happy to send a book out, and let's all help each other. Right? We all need it. times are this modern world is not a cakewalk, and I think we all need to support one another. So
Oh, I really appreciate that. And I know that our audience will as well. So thank you so much. And thank you so much for participating in this again. I know you were at a live event previously, but this was absolutely lovely to get to know you even more. And I appreciate all the value that you provided on this podcast and all the insights that you were able to share. I think that I learned a lot, and I hope that our audience will as well.
Well, thanks for having me. It was a joy, and keep creating, keep telling the truth, and things will be good. All right.
Thank you. And thank you for everyone watching or listening. We'd be nothing without you. So please keep engaging and checking out more things that you can learn from the podcast, just like I get to do. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest. And to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend and, of course, subscribe.